is perhaps difficult to believe that after the punishing 2004 hurricane season, that we would witness far worse in 2005. After a pleasant and relaxing lull in major hurricane landfalls, a lull that lasted for many decades, it now appears obvious that the United States and surrounding nations of the Atlantic Basin are under attack. Attack from vicious killers that we call hurricanes. Even as Florida and indeed much of the Southeast began to pick up, clean up, and dry out after the relentless onslaught of the hurricanes of 2004, Dr. William Gray and his team of hurricane season forecasters at Colorado State University were busy working on a preliminary forecast for the 2005 season. With the names Alex, Bonnie, Charlie, Francis, Gaston, Ivan, and Jean still fresh on our minds, it would not be too long that the forecast for the 05 season would begin to shed some light on how far down that list we might go. Only 1933 had 21 storms, but they weren't named back then. The 1995 season had 19 named storms, too shy of the record. What would the 2005 hurricane season have in store for Florida, or the Southeast? Would there be a repeat of the 4 big hurricanes to impact the Sunshine State?
Show them what the pressure is. As you can see there, pressure's down to 984. It's really loud outside.
We had all winter to wait and anticipate what might happen during the 05 season. But there were already clues as to what may lie ahead. Clues that would ultimately shape the future of not only the season, but also the nation. One of the biggest questions that we ask as hurricane trackers each season is, will there be an El Nino? Typically, an El Nino in the Pacific will limit the amount of hurricane activity in the Atlantic. There never was much of a chance of an El Nino being in place when the 2005 hurricane season began. The next big piece of the puzzle was water temperatures in the Atlantic. Overall, they were running well above normal, across most of the basin, with areas such as the Gulf of Mexico having sea surface temperatures running much above normal. Everyone also wanted to know about the infamous Bermuda High. Would it steer hurricanes into Florida again as it did so many times in 2004? Or would it be weaker and allow storms and hurricanes to turn away from the United States? We know now that most of our worst hurricanes this year formed relatively far to the west, and were trapped by the Bermuda High already. Thus, the Gulf of Mexico had a very high concentration of large, devastating hurricanes. And it all began right on cue, at the beginning of the season in June. The 2005 hurricane season wasted no time in getting started. In early June, the first tropical storm of the season, Arlene, formed near Honduras and moved northward, towards the north-central Gulf Coast.
Hi, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. It's about 9 o'clock Eastern Time. We're here in Navarre Beach, Florida, with the rain coming down, a little bit of wind. It's turning out not to be the very major event that we were preparing for, which is obviously really good news for folks along the northern Gulf Coast. You don't need another hurricane right now, and hopefully Arlene won't make it to hurricane strength before it makes landfall. The rain is coming down, it is a little breezy. Mike Watkins behind the camera, he and I are getting ready to take off. We're going to go over to Mobile Bay and see how the effects are over there. Obviously it's raining pretty good right here, and that's the main effect from Arlene. We'll get out and about, shoot some video of what's going on in the area, and we'll upload those to the website. Back in a very familiar location. We're in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Mike, if you'll pan up the beach, you can see the condominiums up there go all the way up to the side there. Look at that. This pipe here, they're trying to put back sand on the beach. The wind is picking up. The Gulf of Mexico is very angry today. It looks a lot like it looked on September the 15th when I was here for Hurricane Ivan, but it's not nearly as bad as you can imagine, with Arlene being only a tropical storm. There's a few people out here sightseeing. In this particular situation, it's not too dangerous, which is good. People are interested in the weather like this. Fortunately, Arlene is not as strong nearly as Hurricane Ivan was, and this is not as deadly a situation.
Even though Arlene was not a hurricane, its effects were dramatic because of the extremely vulnerable coast in the wake of Hurricane Ivan last year.
This is the West Beach area, just west of Gulf Shores, near the main pavilion that was so heavily damaged during Hurricane Ivan. Right over here is Highway 182. There's the Chevy Tahoe. We're hoping that the water does not get across the highway. That could be very bad. And right offshore this way, Tropical Storm Arlene. Uh-oh, here we go. Surge coming in here, buddy. Tropical Storm Arlene, the center of it is just offshore.
Is your house here? Well, it's just I handle it for you. It's about $20,000 of sand under the.
The storm surge had no problem working its way underneath structures that were still reeling from Ivan's massive surge. With no protective dunes and relatively little beach in place to hold off the surge, even a strong tropical storm or minimal hurricane would have no trouble pushing the Gulf onshore.
Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, reporting to you in a dry Destin, Florida. The highest wind that we recorded on this mission was only 43 miles per hour, and we had an air pressure of about 994 millibars in the middle of Arlene in Pensacola, Florida.
Arlene was not much more than a reminder that indeed the hurricane season had begun. With one named storm and one landfall down, and it was only June, we began to wonder if this was a sign of things to come. At the end of June, Tropical Storm Brett formed and made landfall in Mexico. In early July, in the middle of the July 4th holiday, Tropical Storm Cindy developed in the Northwest Caribbean. It made landfall in Louisiana on July 6th and moved inland. Just a few days later, a record-breaking Hurricane Dennis would threaten some of the same areas that Ivan and Arlene did. The assault was on. By July the 6th, even as Tropical Storm Cindy was working its way inland over Mississippi, the global computer models were indicating a strong hurricane heading into the north-central Gulf once again. I would work the Dennis mission with my good friend and colleague Jesse Bass. He and I set out from North Carolina on July the 7th, this time with a new steel wind tower and an assortment of remotely operated cameras to test out. It was early July and the heat was really cranking. We made our way west along Interstate 20 through areas like Madison, Georgia. I have been to this very gas station so many times over the last few years that it seems almost routine now. We kept an eye on computer models and track forecasts using our HurTrack software. So Jesse, it's 12:30 in the morning on July the 8th. What are we looking at with Dennis?
Well, the track continues to sort of come right in across Pensacola here. Hadn't changed much over the past few hours. And what we're seeing here is the forecasted track of Dennis coming ashore near Pensacola. And what we're going to do is animate this step by step here with a position, and you can see hurricane force winds extending out here in this blue circle, and then of course right here in the core are going to be the strongest winds near the center, and we can see it come in right across the coast. And the National Hurricane Center has it right at about 115 miles per hour right there at that point.
We finally arrived in Mobile, Alabama via I-65. After some much-needed sleep, we then made our way east and south towards Gulf Shores, Alabama. As you may recall, I was in Gulf Shores for the landfall of Hurricane Ivan. Already the evacuation traffic was building up as people fled yet another potentially powerful hurricane. In Foley and Gulf Shores, we worked with the media some, as time was still very much on our side.
Have a place to stay, like the police department, a jail cell is a good place for us.
It was very strange to be back where I had encountered such a powerful hurricane just last September. The memories were still vivid.
Hi, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, reporting to you from Gulf Shores, Alabama. You can see the beautiful sunset taking place in the background. However, there's a house there completely boarded up as Hurricane Dennis begins its trek off of Cuba and perhaps towards this area of Alabama. Although the official forecast track takes the center in near Pensacola, folks down here are certainly getting ready. We've been talking to people today. They say that people down here are physically and mentally tired of it, as you can imagine. I just wanted to show you that beautiful sunset over my shoulder there. It's really peaceful and quite nice down here in Gulf Shores today. That may change as Hurricane Dennis moves off of Cuba and perhaps towards this area. We'll certainly hope for the best for the people down here.
By the next morning, the forecast track had changed and Dennis was progged to pass very close to Gulf Shores in about 30 hours. We stopped at the Lowe's in Foley for a few supplies as we too prepared for yet another major hurricane event. It was still hard to imagine how brutal the storm surge was during Ivan at this location. I was also able to shoot some time-lapse video showing the convective activity over the mainland to our north. Jesse and I began to scout out locations to place the steel wind tower and remote cameras. We found a great location in Perdido Key, the local fire and rescue building, mostly new in the wake of Ivan just 10 months prior. We arranged with Lieutenant Lynn Garrett to utilize the parking lot as a location to place the tower if need be. We then made our way back to Foley.
Here we go again. Dennis has strengthened dramatically this afternoon. It certainly didn't take long after it moved off Cuba. Now it's back to a Category 3 hurricane with winds of 115 miles per hour and a pressure of 947 millibars as of the last recon flight. But it looks like it's going to get a lot stronger than that, unfortunately.
After some dinner in Foley, Jesse and I went back to Gulf Shores and made some adjustments to the tower.
Yeah, well, I'll have to talk to the editor about that.
Okay, fine.
The outer rain bands of Dennis were already beginning to move onshore.
Just got a new house. Currently it's on stilts, temporary footings in a field just north of here, so hopefully it's going to survive the storm well.
Where's your family?
My family went to Texas.
Excellent.
Went to Texas, got out of the area.
Wife and 3 kids?
Well, the 3 kids went there.
Gotcha.
Where did your house come from?
West Beach. Actually, the house survived Ivan.
Survived Ivan and was moved to its current location. Is that impressive?
You're on video, bro.
Live on the webcam.
People gonna be thinking, oh man, what?
I then began to test all of the remote cameras that we would hopefully place out on the worst that Dennis could throw at us.
All right, we're going to fire it up. We're going to test it. And I'm going to pull it up on the laptop, this camera.
So everything has to be within 90 feet of anything.
Bill Cowan and I went out to survey some possible areas along the beach to place some of the cameras. The media is always interested in our work.
Impacts this area.
It is important for me to point out that some of the first forecasts for Dennis showed it making landfall near Pensacola, as we know now actually happened. However, the forecasts closest to the day of landfall indicated that the center of Dennis would pass west of me, over the Mobile Bay. This is why I chose to remain in Gulf Shores, as it seemed almost a sure thing that they would experience the worst part of Dennis. Jesse had become quite sick with a summertime version of the flu. He was not feeling well at all, and I was worried about his condition. By sunrise on July 10th, Dennis had strengthened to a record 150 miles per hour, on a course for either Florida or Alabama. The police station began to evacuate.
Get your list as soon as I can.
Have you got in contact with him? You know if he's going to be, is he going to be willing to go? Because
Go ahead.
It was now time for me to head out and deploy the wind tower and the cameras. Jesse was too sick to work with me, and he went inland with most of the police force. Bill Cowan accompanied me to an empty Gulf Shores beachfront.
I'm standing here in an evacuated and an increasingly rainy and windy Gulf Shores, Alabama, where the brunt of Hurricane Dennis is likely to come ashore later today. I want to show you the Chevy Tahoe here. As you can see, is all set up and ready to go, but more importantly, we have the Hurricane Landfall Project wind tower sitting on the trailer, about to be deployed. It doesn't look like much now, but in just a little while, we will add the anemometer, the wind equipment, that's what that is, the storm cases, which house all of the cameras. Those will be placed on the tower, and we will hopefully be able to bring you extraordinary images as Hurricane Dennis closes in.
The storm surge was once again pounding Gulf Shores, right where I was just a month ago during Arlene, and of course, during Ivan. Remember, with no protective beach or dune system, it does not take much to overwash the area. By late in the morning, it was clear that Dennis was not sticking to the forecast track and was heading for a landfall near Pensacola. There was no way for me to get there in time, safely, so I used my location in Perdido Key to at least set up the tower for some observations. Let's face it, the effects where I was were not dramatic at all. The top wind recorded on the tower was only 54 miles per hour in a gust. I was simply on the weaker side of this hurricane. The wave action was tremendous. Where I was on the west side of the core, there was little wind, but the waves were quite impressive. Dennis made landfall near Pensacola and Santa Rosa Island. I was not in the core, but I did the best that I could considering that the hurricane made a track change in the last hours before landfall. The season was still young. There would be plenty of additional action to come. Believe it or not, this is one of the anchors that was left after the Isuzu was placed here last year during Hurricane Ivan. We came back to this spot. We're here in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Hurricane Dennis rolled in over Santa Rosa Island earlier today. I was in Perdido Key. A lot of things came together today and worked very well, even though I was not in the core or the eye wall of Hurricane Dennis. A lot of technology worked and worked very well today. We did the streaming video, the new Hurricane Landfall Project tower, which is sitting on the Tahoe over there. That performed pretty nicely. It took me a little while to get it set up, but that's fine. In the future, we'll be able to do these things quicker and more efficient because we've had some of these dress rehearsals like Arlene and now Dennis, for example. And the season is still young. I think there's going to be a lot of activity to come, and we certainly know what that means. As August and September rolls in, it's going to be busier and busier.
Truckers standing by may even be rolling this way as we speak in order to get water, food, ice, get that all set up, because let's face it, we just got done with a Category 3 storm. There's going to be a lot of need throughout the entire area.
Jesse dealt with a major cold that kept him on the sidelines for the most part. I was happy with the initial results from the wind tower, but did not really get to use the remote cameras. We departed the Gulf and went back towards home. The damage to areas east of where I set up was significant. Even communities as far away as St. Marks, Florida had a destructive storm surge. Dennis affected some of the same locations that Ivan had, with similar results. It could have been worse, of course. Had Dennis made landfall across Mobile Bay, as forecast as late as the night before landfall, the destruction could have been enormous. As it was, Pensacola Beach, Navarre Beach, and many other locations all suffered extensive damage from Dennis. And onward the hurricane season marched. Dennis was followed by a more powerful Hurricane Emily, which severely impacted Mexico. Then there was Franklin, Gert, Harvey, and Irene, which stayed out at sea. Jose formed as a weak tropical storm and impacted Mexico. The hurricane season was already setting records that would continue to fall over and over again. But little did any of us know that at the end of August would come a hurricane that would change the course of history for our country. Hurricane Katrina will be remembered for generations to come. It is easily the most destructive natural disaster in U.S. history and one of the deadliest. For the first time ever, I was going to broadcast my mission live over the internet, with a live camera feeding from the Chevy Tahoe, as well as remotely operated cameras placed in the Hurricane. There was great success with this plan, and great failure. This segment tells the story of Katrina as seen from Florida from the initial landfall to the coast of Mississippi, where the ghost of Camille is now in jeopardy of being upstaged by Katrina. I began the Katrina mission after spending the night of August the 24th in Titusville, Florida. I awoke the next morning and went south towards Fort Lauderdale to meet up with colleague Mike Watkins. It's really coming in now. In the aftermath of Katrina, there are certainly several stories to share. One that I tell is how it seemed that people in southeast Florida were not too concerned about a growing hurricane just offshore. There was traffic all about and people seemingly going about their normal routines of the day.
Hi, Mark Sedith. I'm here in Deerfield Beach, Florida, where the western eyewall of Hurricane Katrina is now coming ashore. Mike, show him the Tahoe right here for me. Now let's look up the street. Take a look at the trees here. All of a sudden, the wind jumped up real quick as the core came in on shore here along the southeast coast of Florida. There have been power outages, power flashes, vegetative damage. Beyond that, no real structural damage. As you would imagine, you're not going to see much of that in a Category 1. There's a lot of people driving around out here like there's nothing happening. We know what we're doing here, but we're not sure why all these people are out here like there's no hurricane going on, because there is, as you can see right here.
Do I have a green light or a red light, you know?
I would just go. I think the lights are turned around.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
It's really picking up here.
Yep.
Whoa!
All right, check this out, folks. This is a stoplight that's not functioning. And just a little refresher. You're supposed to treat it as a four-way stop and then you go. So your future hurricane people out there that get hit by a hurricane, remember that, please. Look at those trees, dude.
You want to see if we can get a measurement here?
We got it going. The roof just came off there.
What is this?
This is just unreal.
What are they doing?
Oh yeah.
Oh, look at this through here. This. Oh.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. We are getting hammered. As I mentioned, Katrina was the first hurricane that I would attempt to broadcast live from by using remotely operated cameras. I worked with my friend Jim Matthey in Deerfield Beach to place one of the cameras on the pier in Deerfield Beach. While it did not capture anything breathtaking, the pier was closed and the camera recorded for about 8 hours while I was out and about gathering data and video around the area. This time-lapse video shows the cloud motion early on, coming seemingly at the camera. Later on, as the circulation shifts south, the clouds blow more onshore. You can see how the wind acts to push on the ocean and drive it towards the coast. Finally, as Katrina works its way towards Miami-Dade County, the clouds and wind stream directly into the Deerfield Beach area. This camera fed the video stream live remotely over the internet using the Sprint PCS network for about 8 hours.
That's gonna be a good one.
Where are we, Mike? We're in Fort Lauderdale?
We're just south or just north of Greater Fort Lauderdale, actually downtown Fort Lauderdale.
So we're very close to downtown Fort Lauderdale.
This was gonna be anything, and You know, there's not a car on the road right now. I got a really good signal now. Well, we're probably going to move another 2 miles north of where we're right now. And probably not quite that direction, like low by the wind. But the, I don't know if you can hear that or not. Yeah,
Volkswagen covered in the sand. It doesn't look like it's a Volkswagen. Once Katrina had moved inland across South Florida, I tried to follow. But Katrina had defied the forecast and veered more to the south, giving the Everglades and the Florida Keys quite a lashing. I made my way over to Naples and worked with my good friend Dan Summers at the Collier County EOC.
Let's move quickly to Miami weather at this point. Go ahead, Miami weather.
Miami weather, we have dropped all of the land-based tropical cyclone warnings at 5 p.m. We still have an actual hurricane warning in the outer coastal waters, 20 to 60 miles off the coast from nothing over land. We have a flood watch still for Miami-Dade County, Collier, and Maine and Monroe counties until 8 p.m. tonight.
Current forecast track, if hurricane force winds will reach Escambia County, but you know, that's still plenty of uncertainty there. We begin to see high surf and coastal flood problems probably on Sunday along the coast there, as the strong Category 3 hurricane is probably only 150 miles south of the area, and we are on the dirty side of it. So
we're in pretty good shape for mutual aid as needed. Just give us a call.
Okay, thank you, Collier. Any other Area 6 counties with updates?
The Naples area was mostly unaffected by Katrina, even though they were prepared for the worst. This would not be the last time that I would find myself in Naples this season. After some rest and regrouping in Naples, it was time to head north up I-75 and then eventually west on I-10. Along the way, Mike Watkins and I stopped at the now infamous exit 170, where in 2004 I dealt with a brutal Hurricane Charlie. Well, Mike, this is it. This is where we were for Hurricane Charlie. Right here. This is the overpass where the people jumped out and ran up the overpass. Oh, this will be an incredible show. These are the buildings that were completely destroyed. They have rebuilt them completely. Oh, some of the same palms that were here whipping around. Still here. After a while on the road, we stopped off at one of our favorite restaurants, but a strengthening Katrina was constantly on our minds. So what do you think?
Well, this is going to be a tough situation. I think even starting tomorrow, I think hurricane warnings are going to go up tonight, and folks in the New Orleans area are probably, hopefully, into phase 2 of the evacuations by now, and they're going to have everybody out of there by midday tomorrow, I would think, before they can clear the metro area, because right now forecast is right over them. Looks like it's coming back. I think we'll see some intensification tonight. I wouldn't be surprised when we wake up to a Category 4 hurricane.
How far do we have now? Probably 600 miles.
Oh, that's nothing.
That's nothing. With 600 miles ahead of us, Mike and I had plenty of time to consult the various maps and software programs to see just how bad Katrina might be.
I think initially in the fire department there, and then we'll in the meteorological discussion from the Hurricane Center.
I knew all along that I would not go to New Orleans. I had done some storm surge simulation work for the National Hurricane Center a few years ago, and I knew that the Crescent City was no place to be during a potential lethal hurricane. Mike and I plotted out the various storm surge scenarios for places like Waveland, Mississippi, where I had a contact who I'd get in touch with the next day. We had Gulfport picked out as our main base of operations, and that is where we ended up, after a long, long trek out of southwest Florida. Mike and I arrived in Gulfport, Mississippi very early in the morning of August the 28th. I have been to Gulfport before and have seen the power of storm surge here. That was in 2002 when colleague Jesse Bass and I chose Gulfport to observe the effects of Tropical Storm Isidore, once a powerful hurricane in the southern Gulf of Mexico. This is Gulfport at the Erie Pier on a clear day. Here is that same location in 2002 when Tropical Storm Isidore came rolling in. The center of Isidore made landfall in Louisiana and passed very close to New Orleans. At one time, it looked as though Isidore could have been a doomsday hurricane for Louisiana. The Yucatan Peninsula kept that from happening. Nonetheless, Isidore had a large circulation, and here in Gulfport, the effects of the storm surge were quite dramatic. The Mississippi coast holds the record for the two largest storm surge events in our history, Camille in 1969 and Katrina in 2005. It is easy to understand why this is the case, considering that what you are seeing is the result of a strong tropical storm, not even a hurricane. Now imagine what a Category 4 hurricane with a massive circulation would do. That is exactly what I was doing as Mike and I arrived on the scene. I did some rather foolish things during this storm, and I was not going to repeat them during Katrina. Knowing what I knew about how bad it was during Isidore, I knew that the Mississippi Gulf Coast was going to get hit hard. I just had no idea of how bad it would ultimately end up being.
Loading up vans and SUVs and pickup trucks with everything they own, luggage, kids, animals, anything that could fit into their vehicles, they were getting out.
Here's what it looks like outside our hotel room now. Not a lot of people out here, which is good. There's our trusty Chevy Tahoe. We're getting ready to head out and begin setting up our equipment for this historic Hurricane Katrina. Mike and I departed the hotel and went west on Highway 90 towards Waveland to meet with my contact there, Fire and Rescue Chief David Garcia.
I don't know, I-10's right up there.
True.
So
get down to Waveland that way maybe.
If we have to, but yeah, if the hurricane stays on track, at least pieces of this bridge may not be here.
Right.
This is what, 10 feet above the surface right now, and we're expecting 28-foot surge up in here.
Not good.
Not good.
Interesting.
I'm reporting to you from the Waveland, Mississippi Fire Department. Here's one of their fire trucks, proof that I'm really here. We are under the gun from a very, very serious hurricane, one of the worst hurricanes of the last 30, maybe 50 years to hit the United States, very possible. Obviously, the big concern is going to be a massive killer storm surge and lethal, destructive, catastrophic wind damage.
Mike, you going with us? Let's go to, we can just right meet him. We're going
I got a couple of those too.
It started moving northwest. You can watch the loop.
Yeah, it's coming.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it wobbled, but it's getting some latitude now.
That's bad. I mean, good grief.
Okay, we coming around the front now, Mark. I'm following
All right.
the back.
We'll see you.
Come
This is
around
the front?
You can follow me. Yeah, I'm coming around that way.
Okay, thanks. Mike?
Yep.
What do you think?
Getting closer.
It's looking rough, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't look good. Where this?
We are this way, aren't we?
Stronger and bigger than Camille.
The fire chief and his staff were preparing for the worst, as were most people in the region. Katrina was now a Category 5 hurricane, and it had New Orleans and points east in its sights. Wonder what this drive is going to be like when it's all over. Things are going to look a little different.
There won't be a drive along this road.
Dude. Back in Gulfport, the police were busy running people out of places where they could get hurt. The tide was rising, but Gulfport was still beautiful.
It's gaining latitude a lot faster than it's gaining longitude at this point in time.
So, what do we have here on this radar?
Well, this is it's about the last hour's worth of radar returns from the New Orleans site on the long range. So you can see it's just coming into radar range now. That's a perfectly defined eye and radar.
Look at that hole there.
It's
wow.
As round as you're going to see. And what it appears to us, at least at this point in the last hour, is that the eye it's still moving west, but not much. In fact, in the last few frames, it's almost moving due north. That's not unexpected. The Hurricane Center is expecting this to continue to move more or less to the north, northeast, or northwest, I'm sorry, make a track very close to New Orleans, and then begin maybe bending back to the east later on.
Wow.
Of course, that's going to make a big difference for us. If this goes on the Hurricane Center's forecast track, we're going to be situated pretty much right down in here, just in Mississippi here. We'll receive quite a bit of the bad weather. But if this track is even just a little bit east of the forecast track, that eye is going to come right over our location here as we set up in Mississippi.
I am sure that you have heard about the dolphins that were taken from the Oceanarium in Gulfport and placed into the pool. My buddy Jeff Gray from WAFF in Huntsville, in Gulfport covering the storm, had called me to tell me that they had indeed been placed in the pool at our hotel, the Best Western in Gulfport, near the I-10 corridor. It was an amazing sight and one of many to come over the next 24 hours.
Wow.
It was now time to begin setting up the remote cameras and a weather station. We chose to put one camera in Gulfport and the other two in Waveland. But by late in the night of August 28th, it was clear that we might not be able to make it to Waveland, as Highway 90 was beginning to go underwater in many locations. So we decided to just put the cameras in Gulfport only, a decision that may have saved our lives, as you'll see later.
Alright, we're down on the waterfront just about in Gulfport, Mississippi. And I put one of the storm case cams
down here, 2 of them actually. They're both still working. All right, where do we want to go with this? Well, I guess if the surge is going to come up in the Gulfport, we'll put one of them up there. We put one camera out on the Erie Pier in hopes of capturing the storm surge as it rolled in from the Gulf, which was rising quickly, cutting off the pier already. This is the storm surge about to overtake Highway 90. It was very quickly becoming too dangerous to be out. The second camera was placed on the steps of the First Baptist Church in Gulfport, with a view back towards the Gulf of Mexico. The third camera was positioned on a steel light pole along Highway 49 in downtown Gulfport. This would be the only remotely operated camera that would successfully stream video to the internet. We'll take a look at what it saw shortly. It is now just about dawn on August the 29th. Hurricane Katrina has made a first landfall near Burris, Louisiana.
That next band is the hour I want.
Gotcha.
We can't be screwed around that much longer. Let's take this guy in and let's go.
Pretty much. Coming apart in front of me, dude. See the clouds zipping by. That's a roof getting ready to come off of the hotel. That's the Hampton Inn. They're getting ready to lose their roof on the back side of the building. I'm gonna get these trees in the shot too. The trees and the roof. There you go. Good grief. We may be getting into a clearer spot. Let me just check the radar. As soon as I say that, listen to what comes up. Oh, the whole roof just came off. You saw it. You guys saw the roof come off the building. You saw it live. I'm recording it too. It's recording. That building is in big trouble. Big trouble. Roof just came off the entire back part of the Hampton Inn here, folks. You saw it live. Roof came off the Wendy's too. Oh, look at that. It was now time to abandon the Tahoe and at least get to the hotel, where I could safely duck into a room if things got rough.
My God. The ice not even out, it's still over water.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, I guess so. Uh-oh.
Looks bad, Mark.
Oh, just missed the Tahoe. Seriously, just missed the Tahoe, dude.
Yeah, but you still have B, R, G, and R left.
That was just a G. Oh.
Oh, I'm gonna have to move the Tahoe. Right front quadrant, Mark.
Alright, man, Alright, we are getting blasted right now, man. Blasted. Yeah, Mark had 101 gusts. We was waiting for this. So far, so good. We're getting nailed, dude. Might have to get north.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark.
Oh! Let's wait for this to pass. Damn!
It's holding up good. You want to get in that closet down there?
Oh!
Remember that I had set up 3 remotely operated cameras around the Gulfport area. They were to stream live to the internet. 2 of the cameras failed immediately for various reasons, while the live Tahoe cam and the one being set up here worked as well as could be expected.
It looks like the cam number 2 there down in Gulfport. Looks like the surge is starting to come up the street a little bit.
Now, we're looking at your live streaming cam. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, there's 2 of the streaming cams that are running. We had 4. 2 of them failed for various reasons. And Hurricane LiveNet 2 is running, as well as Live Tahoe Cam.
I believe that's water in that road there. You can see the wind blowing off of that water, and it's just tremendous. Look at that. Oh, my goodness. Look at that wind blowing that water all over the place. That's just tremendous. And it's just going to get worse here, folks. We're going to keep a very close eye on this cam, and this is in Mississippi, as the winds are going to be pinwheeling in towards Mississippi, and it's going to be very devastating in this area. Let's go ahead and read a couple more emails while we're waiting. There's Mark's webcam you're looking at there, streaming live cam in Mississippi. That thing is really getting whipped around, boy. Those winds are kicking in Mississippi right now, and they're going to be kicking for probably the next tremendous gust coming in here. Look at the water rising in Gulfport, Mississippi. We've been switching back and forth sources, finding out that New Orleans is having some major problems. We have major problems in Pascagoula and Biloxi. Unbelievable. We've had so many people watching this video right now that I think our server just crashed, but we're continuing on with the broadcast so our subscribers can watch this at a later date. Just unbelievable footage. Everybody in the world is watching this unfold right now. This is just a major situation going on, and we just hope that we're not going to have a lot of fatalities out of this, but it's not looking good right now. The winds and the whipping in, and look at the water, and oh my God, look at this. Just incredible amounts of water coming in on Gulfport, Mississippi right now with a Category 4 hurricane. It doesn't get any more dramatic than this, folks. Look at that. It speaks for itself, and we have a very serious situation unfolding here.
As soon as conditions would allow, Mike and I ventured out in the Tahoe to see the effects of the backside of Katrina. It was obvious as we made our way back down Highway 49 that Katrina had walloped Gulfport. It would not be long until we discovered what would turn out to be a horrifying storm surge. It was still going on, and we soon realized that we were surrounded by water from the Gulf of Mexico.
My goodness,
Look
Mark.
at that!
Jeez. I'm getting footage.
Everywhere we looked, we saw water. The storm surge had made its way inland from the Gulf, working its way up every possible creek, or low-lying area along the highway. Pushed by the extreme winds of Katrina, the Gulf had nowhere else to go but inland.
Oh, goodness.
To witness whitecaps on the water as far inland as we were was simply astounding. This was a record-breaking storm surge, but the full extent of it would not be known until we had reached the waterfront. There are times when it is simply not possible to put into words what you are seeing. It becomes a challenge to describe to others the reality that lies in front of you. This was one of those moments. Mike and I could hardly speak to each other. The brutality of the damage was staggering and overwhelming. We knew we wanted to look for the 3 storm cases in order to view the video that was hopefully captured inside. Mike had to get back to Florida for work, and I needed fuel and supplies. So we left Gulfport that evening and made our way east back towards Florida. We had heard about areas east of Mississippi being severely impacted by Katrina. But to see Mobile, Alabama like this was almost unbelievable. I felt like I was living in an epic disaster movie with no ending. We finally made it to Florida, Mike returned to Fort Lauderdale, and I prepared for a return to Gulfport to locate the storm cases. By August 30th, the world was focusing much of its attention on New Orleans, and rightfully so. We all know about the political storm that was brewing there at the time, but my focus was on Mississippi and the 3 storm cases that could reveal just how bad Katrina was. I was heading back into Mississippi now, to a coast that was nearly wiped out. I had no idea of my chances to locate any of the 3 cases, but it was worth a try. The roar of Hurricane Katrina was replaced by an eerie quiet. Only the insects and sounds of people chattering in the dark would cut through the night. Here I was again, right where it had been so violent just 24 hours before. The next morning, August the 31st, my new mission began, the mission of locating the storm cases. I slept very well the night before and gained some renewed energy that would help me to look through the rubble that used to be buildings in Gulfport. This is the exact location of where Mike and I had left one of the storm cases and its camera along Highway 49. This was the view that it had. Onward I looked, searching all around the devastated city. And then... All right. Here it is. I found it. Amongst all of this debris, here is one of the storm cases. This is the case. It was found right over there next to the dumpster in this debris. Do you know what street I'm on here? Have any idea?
You're between 14th and 15th Street.
Between 14th and 15th Street. And now I'm going to open it up with any luck. One more. Almost bone dry. A little bit of water. This is the one from the First Baptist Church that we left on the steps. Holy cow. There it is. Now if I can find the one I left over on 49. God. There it is. There's information on the hard drive, and there's a tape in here. Fantastic. Alright, I'm going to load it up into the truck. I said it was fantastic, but I would later discover that the case had a malfunction and that it recorded only a blank blue screen for the 9 hours that it was supposed to be working. I had hope, however, hope that perhaps the other 2 cases would turn up and give up their secrets of Katrina's wrath. After searching through block after block of debris and rubble, I began to lose that hope that I would ever see the other 2 storm cases. I also began to feel frustrated, mostly at myself for not doing more to secure the cases from being washed away. I eventually just began to talk to people as they made their way back into the historic Gulf Coast city. Talking was good, not only for me, but for them.
Didn't even know where anything was. Couldn't see any landmarks or anything.
It's all kind of rearranged. It's totally different. What about the dolphins? What will they eventually do with them? Apparently they saved them.
They'll bring them to another aquarium upstate somewhere where it ain't wiped out. The smell down there is horrible. Raw chicken and bananas everywhere. We walked probably half a mile down the coast on raw chicken. From the port. They export that to Russia, frozen.
But life will go on, right?
Oh yeah.
5 years from now, it'll be like it never happened. My time in Gulfport was almost up. A massive recovery effort was underway and I had to leave and head east. I made my way over to Biloxi, again just to talk to people and learn more about what they had gone through.
We're a small non-denominational church from Apopka, Florida called Sabbath Grace Fellowship.
Right.
We have a membership of about 180 and we have just taken on as one of our missions to help people immediately after a hurricane.
You're sweating pretty good. You're up here helping people.
Sweating pretty good, yeah. We left out just after Storm Florida about 1 o'clock on Monday afternoon, drove through the night, and have not stopped feeding people since then.
Very good.
Our mission is to get in, get the people fed while the big organizations are getting ready. they're all setting up now and ready to feed, and so we're heading back, and hopefully it won't be another one soon.
That's right. Well, good work. Congratulations
Thank you.
to you.
Thank you very much.
I worked my way down towards the Back Bay area of Biloxi, north of the peninsula and the Gulf. What I found was amazing. Where am I?
Right now you're on Brazier, off of Brazier Road, Waters View Drive.
In Biloxi.
In Biloxi.
Everybody okay down here?
Yeah, the couple of people that stayed, we had a man down here that knocked a hole in his roof, climbed up there. We stayed on the second floor.
The water came up here? Is that an understatement?
Came all the way up. A man over there was rescued out of the top of his house.
Sounds like a dumb question, but were you scared?
I've never prayed so much in my life.
And here you are.
And here I am.
How about you, little guy? You okay?
He broke down yesterday because his little friend down there that he goes to school with, his house is completely wiped out. But here was the water line.
Oh my goodness. The water line. Hey, what's your name?
Trevor.
What is it?
Trevor.
Trevor. Trevor, how tall do you think you are? Probably close to 4 feet, maybe 48, maybe 40 inches.
Ah!
And then look at this.
Well, let's
There's
see
the water line.
Let's see. Oh, you want to get an idea?
Oh! Here, Trevor. I know I sort of got something.
Let's see.
A long way up.
It is, Trevor.
I still don't have a
58, 85 inches. Goodness gracious.
How far? 85 inches.
Ed Gimmel, just talk to me. Tell me what's happening down here.
Well, this is Hurricane Camille. I'm born and raised here. Was a puppy compared to this. This is a Rottweiler. It's devastating.
Where are we?
We're on Brazier Road, on Brazier Bayou, at the end of Waters View Drive. You're looking out over the Back Bay of Biloxi. You got Hiller Park, which is a city park, and then you got $500,000 homes across the bay. In this area, you probably had $250,000 to $350,000 homes in this area, with a gorgeous view of the bay, and most people around here had pools and stuff.
And this used to be your house over here?
Yeah, correct. Two-story house, about 2,000 square feet.
And it's gone?
About an acre.
It's swept clean?
Yeah. I had a 13.4 Boston Whaler and a 21-foot Wellcraft, and one of them had my...
That's your house, though?
Yeah. Hopefully my boats are underneath there. And a whaler you can't sink, so...
So your house used to be right here?
Correct, correct. Looking out over the bay. The peninsula, from my guesstimate, I stayed at City Hall on the second floor. The entire peninsula of the city of Biloxi was underwater.
The stories from just these two families was enough to write a book about. Imagine what hundreds of thousands of other people were going through. It was enough to break my heart. I had searched for the storm cases in hopes of finding valuable video inside. Instead, what I found was an unbreakable human spirit. Ed Gimmel told me that Biloxi will be back. I would too. 47 days after Katrina, I took Mike Watkins and longtime colleague Jesse Bass with me for a visit to post-Katrina, Mississippi, and to check on our friends in Waveland. Remember Waveland? This is the drive that Mike Watkins and I took on the afternoon of August 28th, over the St. Louis Bay. This is Waveland, Mississippi, about 30 hours before Katrina hit. And this is Waveland 47 days after.
We'll see those when we go up 6. So remember, this will go down to 603 because we were heading out. We kind of came back in the way.
How you doing, man? David Garcia.
Jesse Bass?
I bet you
We
last
met.
time.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesse, you met at the Hurricane.
And you was with him. What you think?
I'm just shocked. I got him on film talking about the phone right in the front of the right here.
Waveland Fire and Rescue Chief David Garcia showed us inside the Waveland Fire Department. Mike and I were going to stay here during Katrina and monitor the remote cameras.
Oh, this is the water line right here? Oh, dude.
David says you would have lost the Tahoe. Indeed, I could have lost more than that had I been in Waveland.
This little bridge, just a little narrow part through here is the only place they can get water. All this turned blue and all this in here was blue. But at the Bay Fire Station, they didn't get water, and they located right here, right in the edge of this pink, in this area right through here, just a little bitty area in here. All this other, all the yellow was water. We'd be coming up on passing Peterman's Grocery right now. It used to be sitting here where the flagpoles is to our right, where the Quonset huts is at, where City Hall used to stand. Our annex used to stand in this area here. The back of there was our Station 1. As you can see, it's all gone.
It's swept clean, Mike. This is where we're going to put one of the cameras.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Waveland was full of homes. We was in process of annexing where y'all come up on that 603 highway.
Right.
This was all homes at one time.
Where do you sleep?
We have little trailers we staying in now, travel trailers. But if the city wouldn't got me that, because I'll come back as ineligible for housing too, I wouldn't have a place. With the Marion that they done early on, they got together and we knew we had to get public safety people back on the job. We seen how bad the city was, and in order to do that and keep our people here, we had to give them a place to stay. So we got the state park down there and got it cleaned up, got the pool in and cleaned up. We got a water purification site to come out. They set up on the beach was purifying salt water to drinking water that they pumped into the park so our people can have water to bathe and all that. But this is like, what, 3 weeks later now, guys, maybe 4 weeks later we're talking about. We ain't been that long. And because we need to keep our people on the jobs. And so we had all the first FEMA trailers come in. Waveland had them go down there, and they was signed in Waveland, and we got all of Waveland's public safety people, Bay St. Louis, the county, and plus county and city officials and workers and all in there. If you work for any of the two cities or the county, you got a trailer at this park or McLeod Park up in the country, and we was able to get them in so we can get our people back to work.
How does this make you feel, David?
Mark, being honest about it, the first day you come out, you really stunned like the citizens. The first thing we had to do as emergency workers, we had to regroup and take what we had, because we lost everything we had. I mean, as well as food, water. We knew we had to assign guys to our survival ship. We had to get guys trying to get equipment going so we could help people, and the first thing we got running was a track hoe. It took us 2 days to get to the tracks with track hoe, making, opening the roads up, but we had people out here on foot helping people if they could help, and trying to see if we had any injured people, and just whatever the guys could do. Probably the biggest and the hardest thing Mike and I had to deal with, we had these firefighters out here and they got away from us with no communications. We didn't know what our people was going through. Didn't know if they was getting hurt. I mean, it was really something we was concerned with. And every day they come back about dark, we was just happy to see them.
At least pieces of this bridge may not be here.
Right.
This is what, 10 feet above the surface right now, and we're expecting 28-foot surge up in here.
Not good.
Not good.
Interesting. I have been in nearly 20 hurricanes in my lifetime, most of them on purpose. Obviously none compared to Katrina in terms of the overall devastation that occurred. Jesse, Mike, and I were simply stunned at what we saw. The once quaint and charming Mississippi coast was, for the most part, in ruins. While most of the national spotlight was focused on New Orleans, it was clear to us that Mississippi took the brunt of the storm surge. Hurricane Katrina is an event that I will never forget, and I think it is important for us not to forget the people of Mississippi. Hurricane Ophelia was one of those slow and painful hurricanes that do not pack a lot of punch, but rather beat an area down over several days. That is exactly what happened to a good deal of the southeast coast, especially North Carolina. I would again work with Jesse Bass on this mission since Ophelia was literally in my backyard. I would also work with newcomer Todd Farabee from New Bern, North Carolina, where I grew up. We first set up our steel wind tower at Fort Fisher, in extreme southern New Hanover County. The tower would record wind data for about 28 hours straight, a record for my remote operating equipment. Ophelia lashed the Cape Fear region of southeast North Carolina with near hurricane force winds in many locations.
Got it.
.61 is the highest gust so far, right here on the Tahoe. We're at the north end of Wrightsville Beach in a very exposed area. The storm surge is trying to come in around the backside through the inlet. A lot of water in the road here. A lot of water in the road. Mainly from the rain. Johnny Mercer's Pier rebuilt after several hurricanes in the 90s. Looks like it's taken this one just fine. A lot of concrete. As you can see, the surge is non-existent here.
Even as the winds were increasing, the utility companies were pre-staging in order to deal with the aftermath of Ophelia.
Look at that.
Jesse and I left the Wilmington area and made our way up Highway 17 towards the Outer Banks, where I thought we would see the worst of Ophelia.
Where?
Along the way, we stopped at Timmy Bruno's house to see the old Isuzu Rodeo, which his family bought off of eBay at the end of the 2004 season. We stopped in New Bern to pick up our newest crew member, Todd Farabee.
I'm in New Bern, North Carolina, along the Neuse and the Trent River at the Comfort Suites here, the Riverfront Comfort Suites Hotel. Jesse, I want you to kind of pan around and show folks what it looks like, and then I'll talk again because the wind's going to be blowing in the mic. Well, as you can see, the storm surge from the river is starting to blow in this way. This is what they mean when they say at the heads of bays and rivers. This is storm surge coming in from the Neuse and the Trent River getting pushed up the basin towards New Bern here where the two rivers meet. This is going to be a big problem as Hurricane Ophelia gets closer, and this area could experience even higher flooding than what they're experiencing right now. We're going to be heading up towards the Outer Banks to make our way towards Cape Hatteras.
The official forecast from the National Hurricane Center showed Ophelia crossing the Cape Hatteras area on September the 15th, the next day. I had been to that area many times and was all set for recording the worst of the hurricane's effects. That's right. There was a bridge just like this that me and Mike crossed. It's no longer there. The water looks up here already. This is the Atlantic Ocean near Cape Hatteras. Dozens of hurricanes over the centuries have battered this region, giving the offshore waters the nickname Graveyard of the Atlantic. Once we arrived in Hatteras Village, we worked with our friends the Harrisons again to set up one of our remote cameras in their front yard.
Just north of Buxton on Highway 12, you can see high ground. This is where the locals have brought their cars to ride out Ophelia's wrath and storm surge. This must be the high point in the area. So everybody's come up here and parked their vehicles to keep it away from the storm surge.
Well, Anna and Dave, it's still raining here. The rain has been coming down for the past few hours now, and the wind is starting to pick up a little bit. Folks are really anticipating what's going to happen tomorrow.
The media was all over this hurricane. North Carolina has certainly had its share of hurricane events over the years, and the media is well versed in coverage. We were as ready as we could be for this hurricane as well, and were anticipating a very busy day as September 15th arrived. Reporting to you from Hatteras Village in North Carolina, as you can see, the wind is really starting to kick up right now. You might even be able to hear it in the power lines. The inner core of Hurricane Ophelia is coming ashore in this area. It's starting to get sheared a little bit on the back side. Otherwise, those hurricane force winds are almost on the coast here along Buxton, Cape Hatteras, Hatteras Village. As it turned out, Ophelia turned more to the east in the final hours before landfall, and thus the worst of the weather remained to our south. What little bit of an eye wall that was left passed over our location in the hours just after sunrise. Still, our remote camera worked well and was able to stream live video, though not very exciting video, to the internet for several hours. Had the storm surge come rolling in as it did during Hurricane Alex in 2004, this camera would have gone underwater. Trust me when I tell you, that will happen again. These are the cars from all the people that live down here that don't want their vehicles flooded like it did during Hurricane Alex. This is not a parking lot. This is just high ground. Pretty wild to see. I guess they learned their lesson after Hurricane Alex. Yeah, that water's really gonna have to come up. Right over at the marina. I hate to be standing in that. One interesting effect of the wind from Ophelia was to push the Pamlico Sound away from land. These photos from Jesse Bass show how dramatic the drop in water level was due to the offshore wind from Ophelia. You could literally walk hundreds of yards out into a dried up Pamlico Sound.
This is the beach erosion that they talk about. The storm surge that blows in and the constant onshore flow. This is it. You can see members of the media down here covering it. These folks from Channel 12 in Newbern. This is the Comfort Inn here in Nag's Head.
Ophelia did most of its damage along the Crystal Coast area of North Carolina. Areas such as Atlantic Beach, along the Sound side, were battered by wind and storm surge. I was not there to witness it in person, as my gamble to catch Ophelia at her worst on the Outer Banks did not pay off. But this was 2005. The season kept right on going with no end in sight. Next up was Hurricane Rita, yet another Category 5 at one point in its life. Rita was heading for Texas and Louisiana, and so was I. For the Rita mission, I had to deal with a choice. The choice of whether or not to go to the Florida Keys for the first possible landfall and then head to Texas. I chose to just head to Texas, which was the right thing to do considering that the Keys could have potentially trapped me, keeping me from the landfall along the Texas coast. I would also work this mission alone, for the most part, as Jesse and Mike were both unavailable. Of course, my trip would lead me right past Gulfport, Mississippi, and I had to stop in to see how things were progressing, now roughly 3 weeks after Katrina. So here we are in Gulfport, Mississippi. I was here for the landfall. I was up at the Best Western, and I actually set some remote cameras down here that recorded the storm surge, but they washed away.
Wow.
Oddly enough.
Wow.
And here we are a little over 3 weeks later. What's your name, please?
Sergeant Rush, Elton Rush.
Nice to meet you.
From Maryland National Guard.
Maryland?
Yes, sir.
Goodness gracious. What do you think about this?
Well, a lot of families are really devastated by the destruction. Some families are still trying to recover from the hurricane. We've been out earlier in other areas, Hosea, Mississippi, where we helped out ice and water and food. And people are just they're soldiers. They're really toughing it up, and they're trying to bounce back.
It's tough to bounce back though after something this massive. And you haven't even seen the waterfront yet. Wait till you see that. It's just unbelievable down there.
You can imagine so.
And New Orleans is like a whole other disaster in and of itself. And now we've got Hurricane Rita headed towards Texas, which is where I'm going.
The city had a very strict curfew in effect, and I could not really see anything since it was dark. So I moved on, continuing my trek towards Texas. I was heading for Beaumont to stop for the night. Believe it or not, I drove from Lake City, Florida all the way to Beaumont, Texas in a single day. This includes the hour or so stop that I had in Gulfport, plus a stop in Foley, Alabama to get a repair done to the Tahoe. After some much-needed sleep in Beaumont, I went southwest towards Galveston. People in the region were taking Rita very seriously, prompting a massive evacuation. After all, Galveston has an infamous hurricane history.
Just an amazing sight here in Galveston, Texas. As you can see, just a ton of media interests here, camped out, set up as we wait for Hurricane Rita. Quite a famous sculpture here. As the world watches and waits, it's like a big countdown.
Galveston, Texas, where a state of emergency is in effect. Category 5 Hurricane Rita heading this way. It is moving to the west coast.
The media presence was the most I have ever seen. All of the major networks and even international media were covering Rita. I even met and talked with CNN's Anderson Cooper for a little while. I left Galveston and went south towards Lake Jackson and Freeport. The official forecast track showed Rita making landfall close to Freeport at this point, so I figured I would avoid the evacuation traffic by going south and at least get some sleep while waiting on Rita's next move. As far as the eye could see were vehicles lined up along Highway 288 heading north from the central Texas coast. By early the next morning, the track forecast had changed again, now pointing towards a landfall closer to the Texas-Louisiana border. This was good news for the people along the central Texas coast. Lake Jackson is right in here somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, Freeport's down here. There's Galveston. Lake Jackson's right in here.
Okay.
Okay, there's Houston. All right. So here is where the hurricane is forecast to hit.
Okay. At the Galveston?
Way up here. Yeah, 64, 66. There's the eye.
Okay.
You never get above 70 miles per hour.
Okay.
You can handle that.
Okay.
The storm surge won't be anywhere near here. It's all going to be up here. You know, the hurricane shouldn't. There's always a small chance it'll come in here.
Okay.
You can't just
But
completely
it's for
ignore
sure
it.
it's going that side.
There's nothing for sure because you know.
God knows about it.
But the chances of it just coming into Freeport and just devastating this area are getting much smaller.
Okay.
And but you're still going to have some strong wind and heavy rain, but you know, you live away from the water.
Okay.
You know, right? You don't live near the water. So you don't have to leave. Don't go get in the traffic and sit there when you are not near the water where the worst danger is. Stay in your house and it'll pass by.
And where are we?
We're way down here.
Oh, that's good news. That's really good news. Because
Fairly tropical storm force winds coming around and an offshore flow
keep the surge out of here. It's getting a lot better. A lot worse for Louisiana, a lot better for here. I waited until nightfall and for the evacuation traffic to thin out, which it did. I left the Lake Jackson area for what would hopefully be my final destination for the landfall, Beaumont, Port Arthur. What do you think? Can you play football in the wind? Doing a good job? Let's see it. I slept better the night of the 22nd than I have in a long time on these missions. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of getting sleep. That sleep would have to carry me through the next 24 hours, as it was now time to get to work. Rita was on a course for Texas and Louisiana. I made my way over to Port Arthur and had quite a following of media with me. Journalists from the Associated Press, as well as Univision and the London Telegraph were shadowing me, covering my work for an international audience. The rain and wind were picking up, but we still had plenty of time to work. It was very strange to see the refineries all around me. Indeed, the world held its breath, hoping that the U.S. oil industry was not hit too hard by this latest Gulf hurricane. I then began to deploy the remotely operated cameras. Port Arthur was first, at a marina along Sabine Lake.
Few little things, but almost everything. Okay, here's Mark. You can see him right now. Sitting his little new toy here with a Dell.
Yep, these are great Dell laptops. They do everything I need them to do. This is the box right here. The storm case. We have the battery, the laptop, and it handles all the transmission of these live video cameras. Look how fast this is in the middle of a hurricane, and we got fast wireless internet access. It's just incredible. This is going Hurricane LiveNet number 2. So after this, we're going to have 3 out of 4 cameras running. During Katrina, I only had 2 running, so already we're going to be ahead of the game. Even though I was working the mission alone, I did have some help. One of the gentlemen from the London Telegraph helped me to move the heavy storm case into position. Here is the actual view from that remote camera. As you can see, it had a very clear shot of the marina here along the lake. If there was going to be a significant storm surge, I would not miss it. Only time would tell. I like to use time-lapse to show the motion of the clouds, which you can see here streaking across the sky. As night fell, the camera caught several of the power flashes in the distance. Some were quite violent, a result of the strong winds of Rita moving ashore. I also set up a camera on top of the Hampton Inn along I-10 in West Beaumont. The general manager allowed me to access the roof to deploy the camera. It was a good idea since I would not be up there risking my life to get any video of the hurricane. Not too much happened that we could see. Unfortunately, for the sake of exciting video, Rita hit at night, hiding most of its fury under the cloak of darkness. I remained in the Port Arthur area until after dark. Conditions were still manageable for the time being. The view from the Martin Luther King Bridge looking down onto the city was simply incredible. It looked like a war was being waged.
Wow.
Back up, back in, back in.
As the night went on, the flashes continued almost constantly. Rita was pounding the area hard with winds that were beginning to break trees and plunge the city into darkness. Seeing the refineries in the distance was surreal against the low cloud deck of the hurricane sky. I had found a very large field upwind from one of the refineries and decided to hang tough there to record the best wind readings that I could. I felt safe enough considering that I was not near the storm surge zone. As the worst of Rita moved over me, I just sat back and took it all in. I'm in the eye now. I'm watching two seagulls just sitting here on the pavement resting. It's as calm as it could be, just a light rain. The eye of Rita passed right over me, and I immediately went out into Port Arthur to survey the damage. Flooding was evident in most areas, though not as bad as I had expected. I considered setting up in Cameron, Louisiana, and felt very glad that I had not followed through on those plans. Like Waveland, Mississippi, Cameron was devastated by the storm surge. We'll take a look at that later. By sunrise, it was clear that Rita had caused significant damage across the region. Although Galveston and Houston were spared the worst, towns like Beaumont, Port Arthur, Orange, Cameron, and Lake Charles were all heavily damaged. The response to Rita in the wake of Katrina and its lessons learned was immediate. I can only hope that that same response has continued in the weeks and months since I was there. You got it, thanks.
water where it's supposed to be.
And what areas are we talking about?
Westlake, Sulphur, all the surrounding southwest Louisiana areas.
A lot of flooding.
A lot of flooding. A lot of flooding.
Rain or storm surge? What do you think? Rain swollen or storm surge pushing in with the wind?
Storm surge, I would say.
Gotcha.
Well, I'm not a meteorologist, but we have to go around and stuff like that.
Right. So this is your means of transportation right here.
Right. We got people stranded on a ferry that got pushed up from Cameron, so we're trying to go get them off.
Golly. In Cameron and surrounding communities, the devastation was similar to that of Katrina. Entire buildings were wiped off the face of the earth. I am and always will be amazed at what the power of water, especially moving water, can do. For people all along the Gulf Coast, in the wake of hurricanes like Ivan, Dennis, Katrina, and now Rita, damage from storm surge is becoming a very common scene. We can only hope that the Gulf catches a break from these lethal powers. I am not sure that folks can take much more. With scenes like these, who can blame them? For about a month after Rita made landfall, the tropics continued to produce named storms every few days. Stan was a deadly hurricane that hit Mexico. Tammy was a weak tropical storm in the northeast Florida area, while Vince, the 20th named storm of the season, affected Spain as a weak tropical storm. But it was the 21st named storm of the season, Wilma, at one time the most intense Atlantic hurricane on record, that would ultimately end the landfall season for the United States. I found myself right back where I had finished the first part of my Katrina mission, in Naples, Florida. It is Friday, October 21st, and the Collier County EOC is already very busy preparing for what might be coming. James Lewis, our newest crew member, would join me on this mission, and later on Mike Watkins would meet up with us in the Naples area. James and I began scoping out the area, first with a stop in Everglades City. Well, here we are in Everglades City, and as you can see, they're packing up and moving out as well. Very important to get the records, the documentation, the paperwork, expensive equipment, all that kind of stuff out of here. Got to get that out of here because the water could come in here pretty high and cause a lot of problems. They'd lose all that equipment, all the paperwork, important documentation. That could all be lost. We'll go inside here. Where everybody works is being emptied out. Chief in his office, everything has to go. Computers, file cabinets. Used to be filing cabinets right here. Now they're sitting out there in the bay, getting ready to be loaded up and moved out. Everglades City is extremely vulnerable to storm surge and was devastated during Hurricane Donna in 1960. James and I knew that this would be a prime location to place one of the remote camera systems. Because Wilma had come to almost a complete stop after making landfall on the Yucatan Peninsula, we had time to take in the local sights, such as an airboat ride through some of the Everglades. After all, this ecosystem is part of the geography of the region. James and I figured, why not? Right on the golf course. Is he gonna get out?
We got him trained.
He can just stay right there. That'll be fine.
Another couple months when water starts dropping in here, you see a lot of birds back in here. Other than that, that's cool.
After an amazing tour of the Everglades via airboat, it was time to head back to Naples to check in with Dan Summers, Collier County's Emergency Management Director. So just tell me what's going on in Collier County. We're probably 3 days from landfall. So what's happening here?
Well, Mark, we're making a great deal of progress in our readiness operations right now. We've had the opportunity actually to gain a little bit of preparedness time as we're addressing Hurricane Wilma. The situation right now is that, as you know, Collier County declared a state of emergency yesterday around 3 o'clock. Prior to that, we had recommended a voluntary precautionary evacuation, and we think we've had some very good compliance. Collier County takes its disaster preparedness very seriously as well. So we continue to be blessed with a fair number of resources, continuing to make strides every day in building a disaster-resistant community here. And of course, we have a lot of expertise in the state of Florida of which to draw from.
Indeed, those resources would be needed as Wilma was going to end up being a major event. Dan has experience with his share of hurricanes. He led New Hanover County and Wilmington, North Carolina through such hurricanes as Diana, Bertha, Fran, Dennis, Bonnie, and Floyd. But this was Southwest Florida, a large county and a lot more people. We had yet another day to wait as Wilma moved very slowly over the Yucatan. James and I scouted out several locations throughout Naples and Collier County where we could set up our remote equipment.
Some sort of high-tech castle?
However, time was beginning to catch up to us as Wilma was about to emerge from the Yucatan and head our way.
The latest on Wilma is that it appears to be drifting slowly toward the north, and it incidentally has not traveled as far westward and inland over the Yucatan Peninsula in the last 24 hours as most of the models were indicating. It could emerge off of the coast of the Yucatan pretty much at any time. All it would have to do is wobble a little bit to the east or to the north. It's right over Cancun basically right now, and it could emerge over the water and begin to reorganize over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. That it's still probable that we're going to have a Category 2, perhaps 1 hurricane approaching Florida in a couple of days.
With the countdown underway, it was now time to prep our equipment for one last mission of the season. Over here we have the storm case cam to help record the storm surge. It's these little bullet cams right here that we will use to record that surge and broadcast it live. As you can see, I don't want too many complaints. I've put the Rain-X on here, trust me, and if it doesn't keep the raindrops off, we'll just have to go back to square one for next year and hire a guy to stand out and just keep wiping off the lens even in the worst hurricane, right? But here's the laptop and the storm case that these feed into. It shuts, it seals, and we can place these out there and hopefully we won't lose them this time. This is the whole apparatus. This is how it works. Here's the little webcam that we'll use to send back a still image if for some reason the video doesn't work. And underneath is the 4th storm case that we'll set up. So we'll have 3 of them with video and the weather data and multiple cameras going in a pretty valiant effort to record this hurricane as it makes landfall in and near the Naples area. So I just wanted to give you a look at that. We're setting it up at the EMS Health Center here in Collier County that let us kind of have this as our little miniature EOC, I guess you could say. And we really appreciate the Collier County government allowing us to do that. And it could make a big difference into how we are able to document this hurricane remotely. So here's Naples, and here's what the track looks like as we superimpose that. Maybe, there it is. You see the line coming through, and that really doesn't tell the whole story. If we animate it, then you get an idea of what's supposed to happen. This is the hurricane force wind area, and Mike's behind the camera. He'll tell you that is a huge chunk of Florida. There you go, being covered by hurricane force winds. Talk about that for a second, Mike.
Yeah, but here's a pretty good image. I mean, first of all, on this track, the center is going to pass right over Lake Okeechobee, and of course there's that verified point there. But that track with that size of winds would put the entire Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Boca, Boynton Beach, and Palm Beach County metro areas, plus Fort Pierce, probably all the way up to Melbourne and beyond, in sustained hurricane force conditions there.
It's updating the information there.
And bring a tropical storm conditions to at least Tampa Bay there.
Yeah, it looks like there could be, gosh, there's Tampa. Look at that northeast wind to 53 miles per hour, perhaps, up in Tampa Bay. Mike, show people the anemometer. The wind is definitely picking up a little bit here. We are in Everglades City. That's where here is. And this could be ground zero for some of the worst storm surge in this hurricane. Let me show you the fire department here. They have already moved a lot of their important documents. We showed you that a couple of days ago. And their equipment out. This area here could experience maybe 15 feet of storm surge flooding, which is really concerning, obviously, to the emergency management officials in Collier County. The water could potentially come up over my head inside of this fire department bay here. And these homes are lower than where we are, as you can see very clearly. We chose the local Sprint Central Office building to set up one of our storm case units. The view from up here was great, and we knew that we would not lose the cases to the storm surge this time. As I don't think I can stand up here and do this during the hurricane. We would anchor 2 cameras to the ladder using simple yet effective duct tape. Make sure that looks good. VCR is on.
Alright, when we get down there, guys, that's the roll.
No, we're getting out of here and we're going to Marco Island. We're going to go put up a weather station. It's good. All on there with the old generator and
Here is one view facing westward, and the other view looking northward across Everglades City. Both cameras would run for about 15 hours and capture some amazing video, without having me to be there.
We're on our way out of Everglades City. It's about 6:15 p.m. We think we're about 13 hours from the center passing, right about where we're sitting right here, right now.
We made our way out to Marco Island to install the next camera, at the Caxambas boat ramp. Right here, I can see the camera for a second. This is the storm surge cam that we have placed here on Marco Island. You can see the little LEDs right there lighting the way. This is the view that that camera has out in this direction. Whatever this camera sees, this case over here will record. It was getting late in the evening now, and Wilma was fast approaching.
That's bringing it right there.
82. That's gotta be
Yes, he's correct. Uh-oh. I don't like that.
It's like a 2 or 1.
Here, south of us, it's really bad.
Everglades City.
And the Marco Island. Conditions were getting rough, and it was time to retreat to the safety of the government building in the EOC. This is the northern eye wall moving right over us in Naples. Just after sunrise, we ventured out to Marco Island, still in the relative calm of the large eye of Wilma.
Wow, look at that.
That calm did not last long.
Why don't you pull up right there and we'll run around the corner and take a look.
Back at the Caxambas boat ramp, we noticed the storm surge that had advanced into the pass overnight was racing out with a change in wind direction. And with it were plenty of pelicans, among other things.
There's more of them. The birds have exited the inlet.
As the backside of Wilma came over us, it seemed to intensify, bringing hurricane-force winds down to the surface very efficiently. Marco Island was taking quite a beating.
Pressure's coming up too, 981.6, 982.
While all of this was taking place, we were wondering what was happening at Everglades City, where a deadly storm surge could have moved in. Here is what the cameras captured. This is the westward-facing camera, and its view at night. By the next morning, it appeared that the storm surge did not materialize, but strong winds were certainly evident across the city. However, as the backside of Wilma pushed through and the winds came in from a westerly direction, the storm surge came with it, though not as high as feared. The water quickly rose to a level of about 4 to 5 feet, flooding most areas. The strong west and northwest winds from Wilma were incredible to see whipping across the inundated city. Here, the video is sped up some 30 times and you can see the storm surge rush in from almost every direction. The other camera facing northward also captured the storm surge. This camera streamed the video feed in real time to our website. We were able to monitor conditions in Everglades City from the EOC or even the Tahoe, and we knew when the storm surge had come in. Even the camera at Marco Island captured what little surge there was. Notice the floating dock floating away here. Meanwhile, along the southeast coast of the state, areas like Fort Lauderdale and Delray Beach were getting pounded. This view from Jim Williams' tower cam in his office shows the dramatic effects of the wind as the eye wall of Wilma passes over. Then we see the relatively calm eye. And finally, the fierce backside of Wilma passes through, downing trees and cutting power to as many as 6 million people across South Florida. Back in Naples, the problem was water. Either from too much rain or water main breaks, there was a lot of water throughout portions of Naples. It all could have been so much worse. With an intensifying hurricane such as Wilma, the landfall just to the south of Naples is what saved the region from even worse damage. The southwest coast of Florida is very vulnerable to storm surge, but it takes the right combination of strength, size, and angle of attack for the surge to be at its worst. Naples and Collier County suffered widespread damage, as did a great deal of South and Southeast Florida. This was not surprising considering the hugely dense population of the region. Wilma will not be the last threat to Southwest Florida. We are firmly entrenched within a new era of intense hurricane activity. Being prepared and understanding the risks associated with living along our beautiful and bountiful coast is the only way that we can adapt to this new cycle. If we do not adapt, we will continue to lose the battle against these natural forces. The 2005 hurricane season was the most remarkable in history. Just think about it. First we had Arlene, and then Brett, Cindy, Dennis, Emily, Franklin, Gert, Harvey, Irene, Jose, Katrina, Lee, Maria, Nate, Ophelia, Philippe, Rita, Stan, Tammy, Vince, and Wilma. And then there was Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, and Epsilon, which was still on the maps as I wrapped up production on this DVD. On December the 6th, Dr. William Gray and his esteemed associates at Colorado State University issued their first outlook for the 2006 hurricane season. The initial prediction is 17 named storms, with 9 of them becoming hurricanes, and out of those 9 hurricanes, 5 becoming Category 3 or higher. The season begins again on June 1st, and I have a feeling that it'll be one of the most hyped and prepared for seasons in our history. We shall see.